Why do I go to horror cons? Isn't it obvious? It's to pick up chicks. Well, I'm back, as of a couple days ago, from StokerCon 2024 in San Diego, California. It was an exhausting trip, all the more so because I chose to drive instead of fly in. So that's why I'm a couple days late in delivering this con report and roundup. But that's what we're doing today. I'm going to start off by telling you a bit about the con itself, as briefly as possible so as to not bore anyone. And then I'm going to present you with my StokerCon book haul because, for whatever reason, y'all seem to always like to see what new treasures I've picked up. In case you don't know, StokerCon is the annual gathering of the Horror Writers Association, affectionately known as the Halloween people, a reference to someone trying to explain to their children where they were going to be for the weekend a few years ago. I think that Halloween people title might have actually started in my own local StokerCon in Denver a few years ago, but I could be mistaken about that. Anyway, it's a professional conference for horror authors, editors, publishers. A few fans show up and other associated professionals, and the whole weekend is built around the legendary Bram Stoker Awards, which are given at a banquet during the conference. I'm not going to tell you everything I did or all the people I met because, frankly, most of you don't care about my own weekend, and if I were to even try, I'm sure I'd end up leaving someone out and then I'd feel terrible about it and I'd have to make another video and bore y'all even more just talking about my vacation. But I will say that it's always wonderful to meet with old friends and to make new friends, and just in the interest of giving some hint of what it was like, I'm going to share a few photos. I didn't actually take these photos myself. They're photos with me in them that I gathered from around the internet from people who actually remember to take selfies or have somebody snap a photo at these things, which I'm terribly bad at remembering to do. So, in no particular order, here's a brief walk down StokerCon 2024 memory lane. Here we see me with the local San Diego library mascot, very much dressed for the occasion. You'll also notice I'm holding a magazine, which is just a bit of a preview of what I'll be showing off later when I get to my book haul. And here's a photo taken by Jonathan Levitt, who's actually not a horror writer, he's a magician, but he's married to and owns a publishing house with author Casey Lansdale, daughter of horror legend Joe Lansdale. And that was a bit of a strange meeting because he also invented a magic trick I've been known to perform from time to time. So we had the strange moment of realizing that we'd both traveled all the way to the horror con to meet a fellow magician. It turns out, as we in fact discussed while we were chatting, there's a surprising amount of overlap between the horror and magic communities. By the way, you ought to check out their publishing house, Pandy Press, because they're doing some wonderful things. And also, Jonathan told me that he's just started a new, hopefully long-running magic show at the Venetian in Las Vegas. So if you happen to be in Sin City, you ought to check that out. It's called Legerdemain. Here you see me wearing this year's StokerCon t-shirt, which you actually won't see when I show off all of my swag because, well, I just got back and it's still in the laundry. But it features artwork by Gabriel Faust. And if you're wondering about my expression in this photo, it's because this was the dead dog gathering in the lobby after most people had gone home. So A, I was exhausted, and B, someone had just mentioned Rotten.com, and I had the most horrifying of flashbacks. And here's another photo of the same lobby gathering. I'm not mentioning everyone by name because I don't know whether they want to be mentioned by name or not. But if you look closely, you will recognize some real horror legends in that photo. Speaking of horror legends, this group of distinguished gentlemen, plus yours truly, gathered before the banquet. I'm sure you recognize most of them, but again, I won't mention people by name unless they want to be. However, I will break that rule in the case of F. Paul Wilson, who you see on the far right. I do that because, as many of you know, Paul recently suffered a stroke, and it was wonderful to see him up and in seemingly good health at the con. Here's the same gathering from a different angle, with some of the same and some different individuals pictured. The photographer in this case told us we looked something like a gathering of the mafia. We declined to comment on that particular accusation. And then, on Sunday night, after most people had gone home and or gone to bed, a small group of us went to the Whaley House, a famous, historic, and supposedly haunted house in San Diego, for some late-night ghost hunting. Before that event, I joked that it would be funny if some locals or tourists happened to be on the same tour, since it wasn't an official con or HWA-sponsored event. We just happened to all buy tickets. As it turns out, there were a few other people who got the rare and distinct pleasure of exploring a haunted house with a bunch of horror writers. While we were gathering outside, by the way, we even got our own horror movie moment when a black cat jumped out of the bushes. Yes, I shit you not, the horror writers got a real-life black cat jump scare. You can't make this sort of thing up. But you don't really care about my own vacation photos or memories, even if they do include some horror royalty. You just want to hear the news. And so in case you've missed the official announcements from the HWA, I'm here to tell you who won the coveted Bram Stoker Awards for this year. First of all, going through specialty awards, Lifetime Achievement Awards were given to Steve Rasnick-Tim, Cassandra Peterson, better known as Elvira, and Mort Castle. The Specialty Press Award for a publisher who has contributed significantly to the horror genre went to Thunderstorm Books. The Richard Lehman President's Award for Service went to Brian W. Matthews. The Karen Lansdale Silver Hammer Award for Volunteer Service went to Lila Dinning. And the Mentor of the Year Award went to L. Marie Wood. And now for the 13 categories of the Bram Stoker Awards themselves. I'll say from the start, I agree with the voters on many of these, and I disagree with the voters on some others, but this is not the time or place for my own opinion, so I'll just congratulate all the winners equally. And here are the winners. For Superior Achievement in an Anthology, the winner was Jordan Peele and John Joseph Adams for Out There Screaming from Random House. For Superior Achievement in a Fiction Collection by a single author, the winner was Gemma Files for Blood from the Air from Grimscribe Press. For Superior Achievement in a Graphic Novel, the winner was Carmilla the First Vampire from Dark Horse by author Amy Chu and artist Sue Lee. For Superior Achievement in Poetry, the winner was Stephanie M. Whiteovich for On the Subject of Blackberries from Raw Dog Screaming Press. For Superior Achievement in a Middle Grade Novel, the winner was Laura Senf for The Night House Keeper from Athenaeum Books for Young Readers. For Superior Achievement in a Young Adult Novel, the winner was Trang Than Tran for She is a Haunting from Bloomsbury YA. For Superior Achievement in Short Nonfiction, the winner was Nadia Bulkin for Becoming Ungovernable, Lata, Amok, and Disorder in Indonesia, published in Unquiet Spirits, Essays by Asian Women in Horror from Black Spot Books. For Superior Achievement in Long Nonfiction, the winner was Sadie Hartman, who you may know as the co-owner of the Nightworms Company, for 101 Horror Books to Read Before You're Murdered from Page Street Publishing. For Superior Achievement in Short Fiction, the winner was Cindy O'Quinn for Quandam, published in The Nightmare Never Ends from Exploding Head Fiction. For Superior Achievement in Long Fiction, or Novellas, the winner was Ai Jiang for Linghun from Dark Matter Inc. For superior achievement in a screenplay, the winner was Takashi Yamazaki for Godzilla -1. For superior achievement in a first novel, the winner was Krista Carmen for The Daughters of Black Island from Thomas and Mercer. And finally, the moment we've all been waiting for superior achievement in a novel, the winner was Tananarive Dew for The Reformatory from Simon Schuster, Saga Press, Titan. Please to join me in congratulating all of the winners and in hoping against all rational hope that someday I might join their ranks. I really, really want one of those haunted house trophies. I have held one before, but it wasn't mine and I had, unfortunately, to give it back. How I ended up with one in my possession for half an hour or so is a drunken story from a previous StokerCon that will not be told on air. But now it is time to open up my goodies and show off my book haul. I'm going to pause the video, I'm going to gather my things, and then I'm going to show you the wonderful things that I came home with. So the first thing I got, obviously there's a bunch of stuff. The first thing I got upon signing in was a goodie bag, which included a variety of things. It came with my badge, and I like the way they do these because there's this pouch that you can tuck all the business cards that you receive. There's a pouch on the back for your own business cards and some pins so you can sign books and things. They put some thought into these, and it does say StokerCon 2024 San Diego. It comes with this bag from Nightfire, and of course, every year there is a souvenir anthology. This one's edited by Cynthia Paleo, and it includes short stories and articles and interviews with the various guests of honor and some of the nominees and people who really made StokerCon what it was and made it all happen. I've not read this yet, of course. I did just get back, but these are treasures to have, and I'm very much looking forward to reading this one. And then beyond that, the goodie bag also came with some free books that are just mixed in with the others now, and I'll get to them when I get to them as we're going through all of this stuff. But in the interest of being brief, I'm going to sort of take this by categories, and then I'll talk about the books in a little bit more detail. So one thing that you always get at cons is an assortment of flat stuff. We've got buttons, we've got stickers, we've got bookmarks, pamphlets, and postcards, and all of the sort of advertising stuff that some comes in the goodie bags, some people hand you when you're at the con. You get all this kind of stuff. Some of it's wonderful. I'm not going to bore you going through it piece by piece. There were also quite a few magazines and comic books being given out. And again, I'm not necessarily going to go through those in great detail. A lot of these are sort of free comic book day things. We've got some X-Men stuff, some superhero stuff. Let's see, X-Men, Hellboy here, more X-Men, Plants vs. Zombies, Pulp Modern magazine, which I know I've heard of, but I'm not terribly familiar with. I'll read that and see what they're all about. We've got Spidey. We've got Evil in Me from Bram. This appears to be... This is an advanced, uncorrected, advanced reading copy, which I believe is going to be like the first chapter of an upcoming work. And some more comics, that kind of stuff. One magazine that I was particularly excited about was this new issue of Weird Tales magazine, which is now over 100 years old. There was actually a panel at the con discussing the 101, I think now actually, years of Weird Tales. Jonathan Mabry is the editor now. He was in attendance. This is issue number 369, and it's the Bram Stoker Awards issue. The cover art is by Lynn Hansen, who was also in attendance. And all of the people featured in this issue are Bram Stoker Award winners or nominees. So again, I haven't read this yet, but good God, this is a thing of beauty. And it debuted at the con and sold out in about half an hour. So I was really pleased and lucky to have got my hands on one. Speaking of Jonathan Maberry, I brought my own copy of one of his novels. This is a fairly old one. It was published in 2007, so not ancient, but oldish, and got him to sign it when I met him at the Weird Tales panel, as a matter of fact. So that's another wonderful thing. I believe I've got some books signed by him knocking about elsewhere, but I hadn't had this one signed yet, so that's the one I brought. And in fact, I brought books from several of the authors I knew were going to be in attendance. One of them was Lisa Morton. I've reviewed her work on this channel before. She wrote this History of Halloween and this Calling the Spirits, which I consider some of the definitive spooky histories, in this case of Halloween and in this case of seances. I had not yet got her to autograph copies, so I got her to autograph my copies. I also brought this Haunted Nights, which she co-edited with Ellen Datlow, who I had got to sign this at a previous StokerCon, Ellen, and now I got Lisa to sign it as well. So I've got both of the editors to sign this Haunted Nights anthology as well. So those are wonderful treasures for me. And by the way, as I go through these, I'm not going to show off the signatures in all of these. You're just going to have to take my word that they're signed copies, but I got him to sign my copies. I also brought a couple books by Paul Tremblay for him to autograph. I brought Survivor Song and A Head Full of Ghosts. I've got his autograph in some other books, but these weren't autographed yet, and now they are. Ronald Malfi was also there, and I brought a couple of his books to get autographed, which he was more than happy to do, so that's those. He also has a brand new one out, which were sold out at the con before I picked one up. Oh well, but I picked up a copy since then, and I haven't read it yet, but I've been hearing wonderful things, and based on his other work, I expect nothing less than wonderful things. So check out his work if you haven't read him yet. I also brought with me a movie, because one of the guests of honor was none other than Rob Savage, who was responsible for Host, along with Dashcam and the adaptation of Stephen King's The Boogeyman. So he's a relatively recent hit filmmaker, but it was nice to meet him, and I got him to sign my copy of Host. And then the rest of them, these were some that I had brought with me to get autographed, but the rest of them I didn't. And I knew I was going to be buying a lot of books. In fact, I actually thought I was going to end up buying more than these. I was reasonably good because I was busy doing other things rather than shopping. But I knew I was going to be bringing back a lot of books, so I had a strategy. I brought an extra suitcase. On my way out, I filled it with Diet Mountain Dew and whiskey. And over the weekend, I drank those, emptied the suitcase, and then used the empty suitcase to bring back the books and souvenirs that I purchased. I'm always thinking, you see. Anyway, one that I picked up at the con was The Reformatory, the brand new Bram Stoker award-winning novel by Tananarive Due. I've not read this book yet. I have read the author. She is very much worth reading. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to catch up with her and get an autograph, but I will be doing so at some point whenever our paths happen to cross at some other event in the future. I mentioned Casey Lansdale, daughter of Joe Lansdale. Well, I picked up one of her books. Joe was not present, but he had already signed this, and Casey signed this for me. This is Terror is Our Business, Dana Roberts' Casebook of Horrors. So this is a collection of stories about this Dana Roberts character, and I've not read that character yet, so I'm very much looking forward to digging into this one. And by the way, if you happen to like country music, Casey Lansdale does music as well, and I'm not the biggest country fan, but I do like good country music, and hers is good country music. This next one was an author who was not present. In fact, he's no longer with us, but somebody was selling this. This is Demons 5, Exorcists Nothing by William Peter Blatty, author of one of my favorites, The Exorcist. And I did not have his autograph yet. Now I do. They did have a copy of The Exorcist for sale with his autograph. That one was out of my budget. This one I could just sort of manage to self-justify, so I picked that up. This next little stack is books that were either part of the goodie bag or showed up on the freebies table, or people handed me because they were handing out books. Some of them I know more about than others, but that's where these came from, and I'm going to just go through those. First, I have this Running Wild novella anthology. It says this is Volume 5, Book 1. This is a series that I'm not particularly familiar with, but I'm always keen to try out some things that I was not previously familiar with. I do like novellas. I will be eager to give this one a try, and of course at some point I'll come back and let y'all know what I thought. I have here The Many Deaths of Cole Parker and Other Stories by Bram Stoker Award nominated author Taylor Grant. This is an author I've not read yet, but it looks like we've got a collection of short stories. Always keen on some short story collections. We have Delirium's Muse by Michael Wurtenberg, another author I have not yet read, but as I keep saying, I'm always happy to discover new authors. It looks like this may be also a collection of short stories. We have a short little book by Douglas Ford, who I was previously familiar with, although I had not read this. This is called The Last Slaughter. I then have an advanced reading copy of Shrouded Horror, Tales of the Uncanny by Casey Griffin, who I know was present at the con. I didn't get a chance to get this autographed, but I'm sure I will at some point. This is an advanced reading copy, and I'm not sure when the book comes out, so I gotta see if it says. It says not a damn thing. I'm not actually sure when this will be out. Presumably later this year. This is The Night Guest by Hildur Knutsdottir. I'm sure I've butchered that name, and I apologize for doing so. It's another advanced reading copy for a book that will be published in September. We have another advanced reading copy. The freebies tend to be advanced reading copies. They're trying to get the word out, so they give copies to people in the business, and people in the business attend StokerCon. This one is called The White Guy Dies First, edited by Terry J. Benton Walker. This is 13 Scary Stories of Fear and Power. So we have an anthology with some authors I have heard of and many I have not heard of. So I will read that, and I will try to get my reviews on these advanced reading copies done around the time that the books are scheduled to come out. You never know if that'll actually happen on schedule or not. The last of this little stack was another one by Douglas Ford. This one is called The Trick, and based on the cover art and the title, presumably it has something to do with magic, and as a magician, I am intrigued. I will be looking forward to trying this one as well. Next is one called Free Burn by Drew Huff. This was an author I met for the first time at the con. She was selling and signing copies of this novel. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've got a signed copy now, and I'm looking forward to reading it. It sounded pretty interesting. I then have Dearly Departed. This is collected works by Sephora Jerome and Andrew Robertson. Sephora I've known for years. Andrew I met for the first time at the con, but they both signed this for me, which is always a nice thing. And I'm told that there's at least one story in here about a jackalope. And I do like a good jackalope story, so I'll be looking forward to digging into that one and seeing what that's all about. And next I have a few books by John Cohn, who's an author who was there. I have Try Not to Die on /Tag. I have /Tag. These sort of go together. And then I have Everything is Temporary, which is a sort of a holiday horror. We've got this monstrous Christmas tree on the cover. He was there not only as an author, and I got his books and I got signed copies of those. He was also there as a game designer because he designed the Horror Writers Association's new party game called Sudden Acts of Horror. The reason I don't have a copy of that is they were for pre-order. I did pre-order a copy. I did that for two reasons. One, it looks like a really fun game. They had the guests of honor demonstrate it on one of the panels, and that was hilarious, and it looks like a lot of fun. But two, the game also comes with a tiny little miniature plastic model of the Bram Stoker Award, and my thinking is that that might be the only way I end up actually having any kind of Bram Stoker Award, so I had to buy one. So I got the game, I got his books. I also picked up a game that I believe he said he did not have a hand in designing, but from the same company. This is a Halloween 2 board game for 1 to 4 players. I like a board game that can be played solo, even though they're better with a group. Plus, when someone shows you a board game with Michael Myers, you kind of got to try it out. So I've opened up the box and I've peeked at some of the bits inside. I have not yet read the instructions or tried playing the game. Presumably, I will come back on here and tell y'all whatever I thought when I get around to playing it and reviewing it. But anyway, that's enough of this StokerCon madness. I got some wonderful things. I have some wonderful memories. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much talking about my time at a con that many of y'all didn't attend. But I will point out that StokerCon 2025 has been announced. It will be in Stamford, Connecticut next June. And by all accounts, the hotel rooms are going pretty fast. And tickets are currently discounted, so if you're interested in hanging out with the Halloween people, I'm planning on being there next year as well, and I hope to see some of y'all there. In the meantime, I got some books to read. I will, of course, be making plenty of videos between now and then, so until next time, as always, take care and stay scared.